Hello everyone, welcome back or just welcome if you are new to my channel. Today we are doing a follow-up to the previous video. It was all about the sewing projects I made for myself in 2025. And in this video, it will be everything I made specifically for Nola. Like I mentioned in the previous video, there are quite a lot of things I made for her, so she needed a separate video. If you don't know who Nola is, she is my little baby. Last year I got her as a gift from my fiance. I have an unboxing video of her birth on my channel. There you can find all the information on her. Anyways, let's take a look at all of the clothes I made for her over the year. Here is our Nola. She is wearing the maid set from Parabox, and I didn't make them. And so I don't have to repeat myself. If you are interested in this maid dress, I get more in detail about it in the video called Nola's doll clothing haul. But I did make the bloomers and the socks. These bloomers resemble some bloomers I own, so I tried to make them in the same style. In my original bloomers, there is some lace in between the fabric. To replicate that, I used some very tiny lace to mimic that effect. Under the lace, I tried the pin tuck technique, which is also present in my bloomers. If you are wondering, the original bloomers I got from 42 Lolita. I also made the bonnet she is wearing. The pattern for it is very simple. It's just a circle with some elastic on the inside. This black lace you see around the hem on the bonnet I got from the thrift store. It's my favorite lace for making doll clothes, but sadly once it runs out, I won't be able to purchase it again. So thank you to whoever donated this lace to the thrift store. I really appreciate you. This is one of my first projects for Nola. It's a simple black skirt with that lace on the bottom. On the back is some velcro closure, so it's easier to put it on. I didn't attach the waistband perfectly on the inside. It turned out a bit wonky, but good enough for my first miniature skirt. Next to that set, I made some bloomers that follow the same style. They have some elastic about the knee and a basic elastic waistband. You can also see here that I managed to align the crotch part very well. I actually made these before I made bloomers for myself, so I could experiment a lot and not waste a bunch of fabric. And of course there is a top to this set. It's a simple shearing top. I used green elastic here since that's all I had at that time. It was my first time trying the shearing technique here, and it was quite difficult to figure out the perfect tension for the machine, but it's good enough for the first time. On the front is a tiny bow. Here you can see the whole set. After that I made another skirt. This skirt is actually a bit too small for her, so I should definitely redo it. On the front I added a small button and it looks so cute. Next to it are some belt loops, but Nola doesn't own any belts, so they are more for aesthetic purpose. Then we have some more bloomers, this time in white. Like previous bloomers, they have some elastic on ties and some elastic on the waistband. It was very exhausting to sew with this material. I think I had to redo them like 10 times. It wasn't really fun. Now to something different, my first sweater. On the back there is some velcro, so it's easy to put it on. You can also see the inside of the garment. It turned out really nice and clean.
Wow!
And here is a closer look at the sleeve cuffs. They also turned out nicely. Overall, one of my best projects so far. I'm super happy about it. And since I really like the previous sweater, why not make more? But this time in red and not fit as tight. On the back is a snap button closure, so to put it on, you have to go over her head this time. On the bottom I used some elasticated fabric to replicate how usual sweaters look like. So for this I cut up a human-sized sweater and it had some elasticated fabric on the cuffs, so I used that. Now Nola will be warm in winter. This is my first ever item I made before I even received Nola. It's a simple apron with ruffles on the bottom. The waist ties you can tie in a bow. This apron brings out so many memories. I remember thinking what to make for her so she is not cold when she gets here. I was tracking my shipment daily to see how close she has gotten to me and getting more excited every time it updated. So it's nice to reminisce about that time. Now to some scarves. This scarf should replicate a thin scarf I own. The thicker one was the first try. I used black thread to stitch it, but after completing it, I thought it wasn't really similar to mine, so I had to redo it. I used white thread on the thin one, and I think it looks a bit better this way. I made some thigh-high socks for her from the same fabric. I tried to make them the same so the stripes are identical on each leg. They don't have any elastic on top, so they sometimes slide down. Now to the triangular headpiece. This should be a replica of mine, and I think it looks similar enough. I used a bunch of different lace on this one with some ribbon around. On the sides are some tiny bows. To put it on, you have to tie a bow under her chin, which is a very difficult task, and sometimes it takes forever. But with some help and patience, you got this. Next is another elasticated top, but this one is a bit upgraded from the last one. There is some velcro at the back, and when you open it, you can see that the pattern is a bit different from the previous one. The old one was a simple rectangle, and this one has some space under the arms, so it sits more comfy. The shirring part looks much better on it. There is some lace on the shoulder straps, on top of the bust, and on the bottom. I'm really proud of this one. Now to a skirt that matches the top. It's a two-layered skirt. Underneath I used white to save up on the fabric. Also I used white instead of black here, so it won't dye her body. On the waistband is a snap button with velcro. You can see I used the white fabric on the waistband too. It was a bit hard to stitch all the layers together, so it's not perfect. But it's okay since it's on the inside of the garment. At least it looks good on the pretty side of the garment. Of course, a matching set needs a headpiece. Do you think it looks similar enough to mine? This time I made the bows out of fabric instead of a ribbon, and to create the look that the ribbon is under the lace, I simply added some straight stitches on it. Here is the full set.
Wow!
Now to the biggest no-go in Lolita fashion. Don't wear replicas. But what about making replicas? This here is a replica of NA+H baby doll dress. I really tried to copy all of its details, like shirring on the back. Also, the ruffle straps were so hard to sew in, especially on this scale. And also the ruffles on the dress. Here you can see the inside of the garment. It's a bit hard to turn the top part inside out, so I don't know if you can see it, but on the bust I added some white fabric under it, so it doesn't accidentally stain the doll. The white fabric is of course not present in the original dress. There is no velcro on this garment, so to put it on you have to go from the bottom up. Or you can take the head off, but it will take longer. Here is the headpiece to match the dress. This also is a replica from NA+H. I had to hand sew it to the ribbon because it was impossible to do it on the machine. It was too tiny. I also made wrist cuffs to go with the headpiece. These two you had to hand stitch to complete them. It was also really hard to gather the fabric. On the bottom I used a small zigzag stitch to prevent edges from fraying. In the end they turned out really nice, so Nola is happy. I store Nola's tiny stuff in this handmade box my dad made in his youth. Let's see what I have in there. Some cross necklace, this tiny lace choker. Here I used a tiny ribbon with Velcro on the ends. It's very tiny and easy to lose. Here I also have some buttons for the future projects and some tiny bobby pins in red and black. I also have normal head pins. They help a lot when attaching tiny headpieces and they help keeping them in place while you tie them. I have them in red and black. My dad has a habit of making things double, so I have another small wooden box from him. Here I store tiny accessories, like this little hat, but it was huge so I had to make it smaller. The bone clip is removable. There is some chain going around it too. Flipping the hat to the wrong side, you can see this little red thing on the edge here. That's where the red velvet cross was glued to. So I had to rip it off and resew it. Here are some warm socks. They were made from the same material as the red sweater, which you have seen before. I also used the elasticated cuffs from it to make these socks a bit different. This here is my first ever headpiece for Nola. It's just lace and some ribbons, so it was easier to make than all the others. This lace already had some spacing for the ribbon to go through, but I didn't like how spacious the gaps would be if I did it normally, so the ribbon is actually under the lace. But everything is attached on the black fabric on the back. So basically the ribbon is in between. From the top first goes lace, then the ribbon, and lastly the black fabric. These here are some lacy gloves. I think to make this you have to sew them on some paper so the machine doesn't eat the lace. And after you are done, you rip the paper off. Then here is a tartan choker with a snap button closure. And one sock. I added some lace and ribbon to this sock. Hopefully the second sock is not lost forever. On the bottom of the box is this kitty headband. Some DIY hanger I made from paper clip. A kitty. A dumpling I found on the floor at work. A kitty hair clip.
Meow.
Remote and some chain. Here is a bear I customized to match mine. I added some chain to him since it's supposed to be a bag. Also some earring with stitches around him, and I think that's it. That's all there is. Oh yeah, and the bear itself I got from DIY craft store, so he was pre-made. Also, if you are curious to see, here are all of her hands with some vase. I got even more hands for her. They look a bit different from the original Obitsu hands. I don't know how to describe it, but they have sculpted on nails and they look a bit more masculine. I think official Obitsu hands look a bit more cutified and simple. I got them off Vinted for very cheap and they fit Nola well. Here are all the hands laid out. To the left are all the Obitsu hands and to the right are the extra hands I got off Vinted. They have some more gestures like heart sign, pointing and horns I guess. Here is a side-by-side comparison with a similar hand gesture. I wish I could recommend them to you. I tried to image search them, but sadly no results. I also asked the Vinted seller and they said they got them from a Chinese site, so I really don't know. If you have any idea where these hands are from, let me know. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention the open white hand is on Nola. So in total I made a lot of items for her. She is now spoiled for choice. I want to replicate even more of my clothes to match her, especially my Lolita dresses. It's just sometimes those dresses have so much unique lace that it's so hard to find something similar. But that's a problem for another time. I probably mentioned this before, but I really like sewing for dolls. I used to make doll clothes even when I was a little child. Just back then I didn't have a sewing machine. I wish I kept some to show you my growth, but sadly they are all gone. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. That would be it for all of the items I made for Nola in the year 2025. I really hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for being here with me today. Hopefully we will see each other again. Thank you so much for watching and bye bye!